Kasumi and Serenade, with their shared confusion, discuss the black hole, how it could be manipulated, and if there's any sort of connection between the Saha world and the activation of runes. With Ferryman's help, Kasumi recalls the 3 times she entered the Saha world and they conclude that souls are the key to the Saha world. They theorize that the black hole could be the Preta rune itself. Kasumi remembers the thing May mentioned and asks if what Serenade stole is something related to souls. Serenade replies by saying she stole Callan's soul. Just kidding. With the aid of Raigokumaru, they enter the Saha world, but it's different. Kasumi describes this place as a world with fragments from a myriad of other worlds. What really is the power of the Preta rune? According to the script, it's a ball-shaped demon. Whenever it shows up, people would be spirited away. They catch up to May, who reveals that the woman behind the soul transfer experiment is Callan, who fell victim to her guilt and regret. May decided to betray Callan, as Callan would only be dead weight on her quest to take revenge on her father. May's plan now is to become one with the Preta rune so she can go to other worlds to carry on the experiment, and a battle with chaos commences. Kasumi wins, the black hole cracks, May fell off from inside, and Kasumi is returned to Yamachi. Before Kasumi could retrieve the rune, it's taken by Serenade, who finally reveals her true identity to her. Though the 6th Serenade in her wants to see her accomplish her mission, the Castellan in her can't allow it. Kasumi is confused. 6th Serenade's scent doesn't seem to match that of the Castellan. Callan reveals that approaching Kasumi was so she could fulfill her wish to fight alongside the Miko once again. She tells her that although the Castellan is her, she is not the Castellan. The Castellan is currently dormant in her body, but when she wakes up, Callan will no longer be herself. Kasumi is still confused. 500 years ago, Callan lost the love of her life. When she woke up from grief, it seemed that she had already decided to stay here to protect her land instead of returning to Europe. She planted the Deva rune in herself to protect it forever. At some point, she saw the possibility of soul transfer. After 100 years of agonizing struggle, she heard a voice, but it was herself. She had a dream where she ordered her men to search for dying patients or death row prisoners for the soul transfer experiment. However, it was not a dream. Since hearing that voice, she has lost control over her body during the day, and even now, her nighttime dwindles. The ruthless Callan during the day would do anything to bring back her love, and the Callan during the night is her soft spot, her dying conscience. Callan then talks about a childhood friend she had who turned to forbidden experiments just to keep her from fighting Honkai. Shocked at how crazy and stupid he was, she fled. Though she doesn't regret her decision, she has begun to see things in a different light. The things we do for love. But, what does any of this have to do with the Preta rune? Callan requires the power of the Preta rune to end it all, but it seems she has to harness its power with her own body. Without a shred of hesitation, Callan smacks the Preta rune onto her chest. The space around her began to ripple, and a crack ripped the space apart. Kasumi chases after Callan and manages to make it into the chasm before it closes. The next thing she knew, she's at Callan's castle, but something had happened to Callan. The Preta rune turned out to be far more dangerous than expected. Callan reveals that the Preta rune consumes everything, even time and space. It's like a singularity where time and space entangles. What we're seeing are various Callans from different points of time in the past. If she didn't have the Deva rune, she probably would have been devoured right away. Kasumi offers Callan to give her the rune since the ninja arts can restore the runes back to the way they were, but Callan says no. If she does, the seal on the Hersher of corruption will break, and the people of Yamachi will taste the fear they had 500 years ago. Kasumi doesn't accept this excuse. If protecting the people is all she wanted, then she could just burn her life to defeat the Hersher once more, but she seems to be afraid of something else. Since Kasumi insists, Callan decides to reveal her secret. Five centuries ago, Callan fled here from Sheiksel HQ with the black box that sealed the Hersher of corruption, but the overwhelming evil began to escape from the broken box along the way. Higokumaru was the first to be infected, and it took everything that Callan and the Miko named Sakura had to stop her. But it wasn't over. The blind rage of the Hersher made the Miko its next host. During the battle, Sakura briefly regained her consciousness. As there was no guarantee that taking down the host would wipe out the Hersher entirely, she asked Callan to seal her and the Hersher inside under the Goshinboku tree with frozen Naraka and Raksha's rage. This castle is the past Yai Shrine, the battleground, and Kasumi's birthplace. Kasumi was created as the second vessel to seal the Hersher in place of Sakura. Though the Deva rune has kept Callan alive all these years, Sakura's body has decayed and fallen apart. Her body would have crumbled long ago if not for frozen Naraka. In Yamachi, the Yai family are the only ones compatible enough to become a Hersher host, since Hersher hosts must have high Honkai adaptability. Thus, Kasumi was created. However, Callan didn't have the heart to set her on the same path as Sakura. On the 6th night after Kasumi's birth, Callan put on a mask, stole her from the underground labs, and sent her to Sheiksel. After Kasumi, every other vessel made for the same purpose failed to survive. And so, the plan shut down, and the soul transfer experiment began. Callan's plan now is to use the Preta rune to send the Hershers will into another world, even though the people in that world may suffer. She begins reminiscing about the past. Even with the borrowed 500 years, she can only end it in the dumbest way. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted. To both of their surprise, it's the Herrscher of corruption. Being trapped in a broken shell, watching humans became a source of entertainment for her. Sense of justice, sense of guilt. The purer your feelings, the more you suffer and sink. But she's not her favorite clown. Callan's duty towards Yi village, her protection of the land, and her making of a vessel to seal the Herrscher again. It's all part of Otto's plan. When he carried the golden cross here from Europe, he noticed that the Herrscher was still awake and the two made a deal. He didn't care how the world would end up as long as Callan lived. The Herrscher would puff up Callan's senses of guilt and duty, while Otto's part of the bargain was to unseal her and prepare for her a perfect vessel. The result was that Callan defied Cheek's orders to stay here. Yaimachi was a cage crafted by herself, and her vessel too, also by her hands. The Herrscher then calls out Rita and she reveals herself. Rita explains that she is a courier and an eye sent by Otto. Her mission is to plant herself in Yaimachi, help the vessel break the seal, then kill the revived 12th Herrscher after it takes over the vessel. To win, Herrscher of corruption summons the blade spirit of frozen Naraka that she had corrupted over the centuries. It's time to fulfill the deal. After a hard-fought battle, Callan limps towards the sealed Miko and activates the Preta rune. The whole castle began to tremble violently, wood chips rained down, and everything began to turn. Kasumi labored to pick herself up to run in Callan's direction, but her weak legs failed her. Callan turns around and gestures to her to be quiet.
在把你从实验舱带出来的那个夜晚，时隔100年，我再次看到了玉神木花开满树。霞，并非代号，而是我给予你的最初的名字。夜莺八重，花叶同生，如云似霞，和玉神木的花名相同。你的名字叫做八重霞。
She then gave a nod to Rita. With a nod back, Rita carried Kasumi towards the exit. Callan gently cuddled Sakura, clasped the blade in hand, and slowly drew it out from the cold body. This was the last Kasumi saw of Callan. On account of her noble efforts, the Herrscher decided to share something sweet with her. Yae Sakura's soul had not been in this vessel for quite some time. The experiment that Callan had risked everything on had succeeded long ago, and the reason why so many vessels had failed was because Sakura's soul had found its way home in Kasumi. The space wrap lasted a whole night. By dawn, the castle had been reduced to ashes. Rita had left, perhaps to report to her master, while Kasumi wandered aimlessly, searching for any proof Callan was still breathing, but she could only find the Preta and Deva runes, cementing the reality that Callan was gone forever. Though overcome by grief, her senses picked up approaching footsteps. It's Ferryman. Ferryman reports that May had lost her memories and can't remember anything about her father. When Ferryman brings up Kasumi's swollen red eyes, Kasumi explains that she doesn't know who these tears are for. During that moment, she was struck with an overwhelming sorrow, as if someone else was crying in her body. So, is it a curse to not be able to see the light? Perhaps the crave for light is the real curse. Ferryman invites Kasumi to come with him, and Kasumi brings Ferryman's identity into question. If what Rita says is true, then Ferryman is not the overseer's eye. Knowing the Onba codes, breaking into Rita's mansion, stealing the ninja arts, and posing as the Sheik's liaison. Who is he really? Ferryman introduces himself as a boat runner, running a boat of homeless misfits and rebels. He explains that when he was whining, someone told him there are people like him that need him, and he just needs to find them. Ferryman invites Kasumi again. She eventually accepts. During the elevator ride, Kasumi points out how the Preta rune is a crystal shard in comparison with the rest of the runes. Ferryman seems to know something about it, but claims it isn't important anymore. The event ends with Ferryman welcoming Kasumi on board the Hyperion.